here. I risk everything. I leave everything behind. Salut. Oh non, c'est un swing. C'est swing.
Или потому что я сильная.
Our generation fights for our seat on the table. Climate change is connected to us. I started a movement to protect my future.
There is such a big divide in this country. Injustice is present in every part of our lives.
A dictatorship has nothing to do with our values. I'm not from China. I'm from Hong Kong.
It's up to us to shape the future.
It's better for my family not to know my role on the front line.
We don't risk our future by protesting on the streets. Not going on the streets will risk our future way more.
That day when I got beat up, I feel like I couldn't do that anymore.
When they shoot us right in the face.
I fear to fail.
I'm very scared that they will know my name and my family's.
We already lost so many battles. We can't risk losing this one.
I ask myself if I am the right person to lead the movement.
Being at the front line means a lot of risks.
I don't know what will happen next.
I really don't want to be the next face on this wall.
Fear is their biggest weapon against us.
People of my age stand up.
Who can change the course of history.
Through endless sacrifices, we hustle our way because this is our future.
That's only the beginning. I'll do anything for a better future. I owe this to my future children.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Europe on Screen 2021 Film Talk, and today we will have a great session, Film Talk, with Mr. Franz Böhm from Germany, the director of Dear Future Children. But before we start, please allow me to explain the function of this Zoom webinar, and please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Melina Putri Wismurti. I am the festival co-director of Europe on Screen 2021. Please kindly keep in mind that the session will be recorded and this as well will be broadcasted live on our YouTube channel at the Europe on Screen. And then all participants are muted in order to enable the speakers to speak without any interruptions. And we also activate the Q&A box in the bottom, if you can see. where you can type your questions that will be answered during the Q&A of the webinar. You can ask about the film, the festival, you can ask us anything. And then also the session will be fully conducted in English. So if you want to ask also in Indonesia, just let us know. We will have to also translate the questions to us. And I am sorry if you hear the fan uh, in the background, because it is actually 35 degrees at the moment and I cannot stand the heat. So sorry about the noises. So yes, Franz, it's so good to see you here. Good morning, I guess, right now.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to speak with you. And I'm very, very much looking forward to having this discussion here.
Thank you so much. I mean, this film, as earlier we talked, this film is very, very powerful, especially in my personal experience. Is bring back old memories, going down the road, like what Rayen, Hilda, and Peppers did. I mean, they're very brave, very motivated, and have this kind of energy, such huge energy to to fight for their country, for whatever, for the changes in their country, even though each has a different aspect, like Rayen with the social injustice and Hilda with the environment, and then Pepper, which I relate the most, is about what happened in her country. So I was just wondering, how did you get first inspired to do this? So were you know them like in the beginning, or how does it start?
Yeah, I think, so first of all, I have to say that this whole project, and also the reason why, and I'm pleased to hear that you think that the film is really powerful. I think one element that enabled us to make this film in such a good way is our team. This film really is a result of amazing teamwork, of people who worked in our team and who were able to invest a big amount of energy, time, and passion into this project. And during the beginning of 2019, we were all, so the core team was just really, really inspired and fascinated by young activism, by young global activism. And we definitely wanted to learn more about it. So during our first research phase, we actually have been in touch with 11 different protest movements all across the world. We spoke to a lot of people, and we were looking for protest movements where you can see a democratic majority behind the core goals of these individual movements. And yeah, that's how we, first got in touch with all these movements, and then also with the activists itself. And I think when we first researched that topic, I think one thing that we all, that all struck us is that quite often, quickly produced news reports or something like that, they either feature just the most popular activist, or voices from the very, from the right or very, very far left spectrum of these individual movements, because they are then dropping sentences that work well in a 1-minute TV report. But we wanted to have activists, we wanted to have protagonists who are representing the very backbone, the core of these individual protest movements. I think that was our main motivation.
And you captured them well. I mean, from 11 subjects that you mentioned earlier, and then you choose these 3. Were there any specification? I mean, these 3 is basically like very powerful stories.
That's true, yeah. So I think, first of all, the most important part was we were definitely looking for youth-led protest movements, and we were also looking for movements, as I mentioned, where we can see a democratic majority behind the core interest. And we were also, I think we really wanted to have 3 different movements to portray. So also with different societies. So for example, in Hong Kong, obviously, the people there are very experienced with protests. There have been multiple protests in the past years, in the past decades. Whereas in Uganda, for example, Hilda is facing the fact that most of her citizens, most of the people in Uganda don't really know about the climate change, a big challenge she has to face. And when we are speaking about the protagonist itself, we created a pool of 10 persons per movement. And we were just looking for the one person, the one activist that is most representative for the individual movement. That is also, I mean, obviously, who is also ready for this commitment. We have been, we were filming for 3 months each. So that is obviously a huge commitment. And we also wanted to have activists who joined the protests on day one, who really represent the backbone of these movements.
Yeah, and the movie really again captured it all. It's worked with these 3 movements, and it's funny thing is that the social injustice and also environment and also what happened to peppers. That's the 3 biggest things that also related to Indonesia, and especially in our audience here. Seeing the Hilda trying to capture all this plastic in the river, that was wow, that was amazing. And also seeing Rayen looking at the poster of the missing people, that was practically me. I was actually worried like her, like, oh my god, I don't want my face to be in one of those missing or dead people posters. And for peppers, what I think the most related part would be where she put it, the nickname of her friends not to be captured. That's also what I did during 1997, 1998, and then also during 2010 actually, when we were also with another film festival actually. So it was very interesting how you get to that details, meaning that it's something that confidential. It's something that like you can't earn their trust. This is I was just wondering, how did you do that? Were you spending more time with them first, or I don't know what kind of approach that you do with them?
That's definitely a very interesting question. And that's something we thought a lot about as well before starting the research phase. I think, first of all, what helped was our age. We were in the same age, or we still are in the same age as the protagonists. And we very clearly communicated from the very first day what our project will look like, how that will work. We also obviously promised them that they will be able to see the film before we finish it, before we release it anywhere. And the thing is that we didn't really make a film about these activists. We made a film with them. And that's, I think, a core difference to many other projects. We created a set of rules that we all followed. We asked them what they think about the protests. For example, we have in the film, during the beginning, we are explaining very briefly the history of the protest. That is actually a part of the film that was created by many, many other filmmakers all across the world. We collaborated together to find the best way to explain the protests, because I myself, as a German UK citizen, I can't do that alone. That is only possible via good teamwork. And I think that was a general attitude represented by our whole team that helped us during the whole filming process. And when we arrived in these locations, let's say in Hong Kong, we made sure to spend enough time without cameras, just talking to people, getting to know each other, introducing ourselves to every single person who is important, introducing ourselves to Pepper's friends, introducing ourselves to members of the front line, to first aiders, so that when we then start filming, everybody already knows, oh yeah, they are okay. We know them, we have their contact details. If anything goes wrong, we can just contact them, we can just call them. So we worked really hard to gain their trust. And I think the most important element was just honesty.
That's so true. Honesty is the best element of all, and it's still impressive how you get to earn their trust, and it makes sense when you said that you collaborated with all filmmakers that also involved in their journey, in the three girls' journey, and this is actually leading to another question of mine, like when the situation raising up during the Dignity Square, where Rayen gets a lot of violation. I was like looking at one of the maybe cameramen, and I was like, is it Franz who were like getting the bomb or something like that? Like you guys were like very in the extreme close up to Rayen. Were you hurt or was everything okay?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's something that my mom asked as well after after seeing the film for the first time. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, filming at the front line was a big challenge for our team. We prepared ourselves in detail for that. We had security briefings, we actually had training sessions. We explored the front line also without cameras first. We talked to a lot of other filmmakers, other activists, NGOs, asked them for advice. And we knew that if we are accompanying our protagonists at the front line, nobody can guarantee our safety. That's a risk that we were willing to take because we wanted this project to follow the protagonists as closely as anyhow possible. We were well prepared, also very well equipped. We had bulletproof vests, helmets, gas masks. Still, in Chile, for example, people actually shot rubber bullets at us, also hit us. And I can say that it hurts quite a lot getting hit by one of these terrible things. However, that didn't really stop us from filming there. We knew that this is a calculated risk. And we knew that, we have emergency options, but still we were very focused and concentrated, and we were able to film there. It was intense, I'm not gonna lie. And I think the most intense part wasn't actually the physical the physical pain there. It was what happens to us when we see people die in the front line. What happens when, people who we talked before, who we met the evening before, die at the front line. And that's, I think, an experience that we are still coping with.
Yeah, I can imagine the trauma that your team, even all the protagonists had experienced during this. That's something that has to be dealt later on. I'm sure the PTSD. I mean, at least for me, I have to deal with that a bit, the kind of issue of PTSD until today. But then it's amazing how you. I think also one of the scenes that I remember is when you also visiting the parents of the dead boy, Abel. That was wow. That was just when the family open to you. That's how did you get to that? Whether I understand that Rayen knows him, right? Or how does
we
the process go?
Yeah, we also knew the family quite well. They were quite keen supporters, also when Abel was still alive, and helped us quite a lot in preparing the actual film project. And when we heard that Abel died, obviously that was a big, very challenging time for the family. And at first, I lost my father when I was quite young, and knowing all that, having, I had that experience with my family. And first of all, I thought, okay, we will just leave them alone. This is not a place where our film project has any priorities whatsoever. And the one person who kind of changed our minds was Anselmo, so the father of Abel. He said to us, guys, if you want to know what activism in Chile is about, then you need to join us when Rayen is visiting us, because that's just the truth. And if you're not there, you are hiding from the truth. And then we had a very long discussion about all that. We triple checked and double checked with him and his family. And then they invited us to join when Rayen is listening. Obviously, for us, that was, I think, one of the most painful moments during the filming. And we also, double and triple check with the family. We sent them the scene and the whole film and gave them months to decide whether that's really okay for them. They were always like, yes, please. That's just, it is important for people to see that this is the reality. And I can only say that I just have deepest respect for families who actually have such a burden and who lost family members to the protests. That's something that we still, as a team, that we still think about very, very often.
Yeah. And how is the family now?
First of all, one has to say that the constitution in Chile is currently rewritten. So the core goal of the protest was achieved, actually. The family itself, Anselmo, we are still in close contact. They are, I think, still traumatized by everything. I think it would be a lie to say that they are well. And I'm sure it will take some time before things get better for them.
Yeah, I understand that. Here in Indonesia, the family of the students that went missing are still having their plea to the government every Thursday. So we call it a Thursday session when all the families gathering in front of the palace to seek for the justice of the missing students and missing children. So yes, wow. We have already questions from our audience before we continue. So from Ismi Aziza, she was asking in Indonesian. I will translate them to you. So when Hilda became a guest at the radio, she was asked why climate, and she answered because climate affected everyone. And I would like to ask the same thing to Hilda, Pepper, and Rayen from all the issues why they chose that one.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I would say I really don't want to speak for the activists themselves, but I can only say what they told me, and that's a really interesting discussion we had with distributors as well. So a few European distributors saw the film and were saying, yeah, well, but that's a film that is not taking place in Europe. And it's not really affecting us. And I think that's a big illusion because actually all three topics, social justice, climate change, obviously, and democracy and the rise of the CCP are heavily affecting us. And for Pepper, for example, Pepper was about and now lost her hometown, her home city.
Yes.
She now has, as she says it, as she puts it, she has no place where she can grow her children. And Rayen was facing a similar situation. The rising injustice was making it so difficult to live and to create a good future in Chile that for Rayen and Pepper, the only way was to change that. And I think it's fair to say that both of them didn't really choose to be an activist. They just had to. And they had to be activists on the streets as well, because every single other way, every political way was tried before and was blocked. Especially people in Germany may find it a bit hard to understand why people take you to the streets, why there's so much violence. Because in Germany, we have so many other ways to participate in our democracy. But these ways, these opportunities, these possibilities are just not given in Chile or Hong Kong or Uganda. So people need to be innovative, need to think about what's their last possible way to make their voices heard. And that way, that were street protests. I hope that answers the question.
That's really true. I couldn't agree with you more. This is something that we still need to do, unfortunately, to express what is important and what is become our concern in this part of the world. So it is very good for us also to see your film and to have this discussion today. So yes, and the next question was from Lukman Fahid Wibowo. Hi Franz, how did you find these young activists? I think we have already covered that. And did you have any security team, sorry, to ensure the safety of the filming crews during the protest in Hong Kong and Chile?
That's a very interesting question. Yes, we had. So we had several measurements to ensure the safety, first of all, though, of the protagonists themselves. For example, obviously for Pepper, it was quite a big challenge to be filmed all the time. And we worked together with a big university as well to ensure that the film can't be used against her, or can't be, that she also can't be identified throughout the film. And we also had local security teams to ensure the safety of our data, also of our film team in a way. And I think the biggest security concern that we had to face, or the biggest security challenge we had to face, was everything that happened after the filming. Because especially when we published a crowdfunding campaign for the film, there was a huge hate wave coming from very extreme Chinese activist groups, I would say, who were trying everything to stop the project, because we are featuring a Hong Kong activist as well. And we received death threats, we received hacker attacks on our bank accounts, on our project servers. And we had to collaborate very closely with the Harvard University in the US to ensure the safety of our data and of our team. And I can also say that, honestly, it's not a great feeling to receive a letter with, the addresses of our family members, and it says, stop the project, otherwise bad things will happen. And we had to make sure that these are only threats, and that these don't turn into reality.
Yes, I can feel that. That's really not a nice feeling, and then it just give you more gruesome and then also tiring at the same time. Wow, and you were working together with team of Harvard, so that's like from another part of the world, which is like involving in this project. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
Yes, and okay, the next questions was from Abdul Aziz Muhammad. The movie highlights the fears that the activists go through. Why do you show that part? Do you think this could help other activists who are risking their lives in any way?
That's a very good question. I think when we first started the project, and that's something that I also mentioned before, we wanted to be honest about young global activism. And we entered these countries and started a collaboration with the activists, not knowing, what their biggest motivations are, what their biggest fears are, if they have any fears. And the film itself, I think, represents the reality of young global activism in these individual countries, and not featuring the fears would be manipulating the truth in that way. So that's the reason why we very clearly said, okay, if the biggest challenge for them is having this constant fear, of getting identified, of getting shot, of losing their family members, then that's definitely something we need to show in the film as well.
Okay, now, we have a lot of questions also from the YouTube audience. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a pleasure.
Okay, so yes, the next one is it is from our audience at the YouTube. When you are shooting the riot, did you also get a shelter and support from the embassy?
Did we get a shelter of support? Yes. So we collaborated with many NGOs and other journalists, filmmaker friends, and we were happy about any help and support we received. Yeah, there were some individuals who also gave us shelter, who also enabled us to, you know, store our equipment. Sometimes people also supported us by giving us, you know, free car rides, for example. That has been really helpful. I have to say that we realized this project with a very limited budget. So we were really in need of any support that we could get. Yeah. So various support from, and it was actually amazing to see how many people supported us. For example, also in Hong Kong, just people seeing that we are from a film team, sometimes they just, you know, gave us free coffee or some food or just said thank you and all that. And that was obviously really amazing.
Oh wow, that's those little things really energize you in a way, and this is coming from the local citizens.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really good to hear. Okay, and another question was from Bambang Junaidi. Hi Franz, I wonder if you have any plan to revisit these three activists again in the future, maybe like a follow-up of this documentary to see how their activism has grown, especially in Hong Kong, or do you plan to do another documentary in another country instead?
So I first of all have to say that all three protagonists, obviously, and myself, we are very, very good friends now. And we are in, you know, daily contact and all that. And I wouldn't, yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible that we are doing something like a follow-up documentary. However, right now we are in development for a different feature-length project.
Now I can't wait to to see that one for the future. For the next one. All right, and then back to the questions that we were talking before we discuss another we answer another audience questions. You said also that you show the films to them. What was their first reaction? Whether
I mean, technically, we collaborated very closely with activists on the ground, filmmakers on the ground, and the protagonists themselves. So they didn't see the whole film itself first. They saw first small parts. You know, we were sending over a rough cut of scene and asking, hey, what do you think about this scene? Is this okay that, for example, Hilda, that we are showing your mother here? Do you feel comfortable with that? Do you feel safe with that? But I also remember when we first sent over the first rough cut of the whole film. I think it's also important to say that none of the protagonists had any concerns or anything. So they didn't use their veto rights at all, which I think is a good sign. And yeah, I mean, we had a very long phone call then, and we just realized, you know, you have to understand that when we're filming on the ground, sometimes we all just ask ourselves, is this really going to be a film project? Are we really able to finish this? Is this really, what are we doing at the moment? Are we really getting the footage that we want? And then seeing the whole film for the first time is obviously very, very impressive for everyone involved.
and especially with your stories earlier about the father, the family of the Abel, that was also and
Absolutely.
we were just talking about like the non-fun part of filming this film. I'm sure there are also some fun part besides getting a free coffee. So maybe you can share with us, well, what were the fun part of making this film?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that we had a very, very cool team. And it was such a pleasure to wake up every morning and to know that we will work together with such a talented crew. Also, there was like no higher institution above us. So we were actually the decision makers. We were the filmmakers. We didn't have to answer to anyone. I know that may sound weird now, but that was actually really helpful for us. It was really our project. And we worked really hard to create an atmosphere where everyone was able to unleash their full potential. And seeing, let's say, our sound designers, our editor, Daniela Shamura, seeing that she was able to work with her best energy, that's something that was just extremely inspiring to see and made me very happy at the time.
Yeah, me too. Like I was also wondering about the editing, like some from the rock to another country to to a different rock to another scene. That was really really good. And how did the team? Since you're saying that you guys, the team, are the decision making part of the film, so how did you communicate? Were there like something? Oh, do you think this is too dangerous to be included in the film, or do you think this probably should be taken? Because I can understand in making a film documentary, you must have hundreds or hours of footage that you combine into like 90 minutes. Well, that's really good. Good job.
Yeah, we had so much footage, but I think our editing team just did a really, really amazing job. We were obviously still in close correspondence with both the Harvard University, but also, again, activists and filmmakers on the ground. That has been particularly helpful when it came to the small clips where we explained the protests, the brief history. And yeah, then we just spent days and days in the editing room trying to figure out which scene is most important, which scene is most representative, which interview was the best, which sentences from the protagonists are most important. I think that was the main effort of our post-production team.
Yes, big shout out to them.
Yes, absolutely.
for
Andreas Köstler, Natalie Köbel, Daniela Shamura is hands down the best editing team in the world.
Exactly. That was really good editing. Okay, now we will go back to answer some questions from our audience. There was like one that it was saying that this movie shows some real movement with good motivation and good reasons, and I admire the girls' pure motivation behind their action, unlike the politicized protests that we had seen quite a lot around us recently. But the more I watch what happened in their fights, I cannot help but feeling sad that what they had done was like a drop of water in the ocean, because what they are fighting against is so huge and ruthless. Hope this movie can give them hope. Well, there was no questions about that, but that's actually lead to my other questions of what is happening with Pep. I mean, you obviously we know what happened to Peppers at the end. She couldn't go back to her country, but also for Rayen and Hilda, what is happening with them now?
I mean, it's a very interesting note. Definitely, it's a very interesting comment, and I slightly disagree because in Chile, for example, the constitution is now newly written. The main goal of the protest movement was reached, was achieved. That maybe didn't make headlines here or in Europe or somewhere else, but it was actually a big achievement. The protest movement can be really, really proud of that. Rayen is extremely happy about that. Sadly, the Hong Kong story is even worse. Pepper had to flee her home country. She can't communicate. She can't really communicate with her family. Contact to some of her friends has been cut off due to security concerns, due to safety concerns. And young activism is a brutal reality to live in. And I think it's even more important for all of us, for the international community, to keep up the conversation about that, to keep talking about them, and to keep telling the story of Hong Kongers, for example. Here in the UK, for example, we have a few screenings with exile Hong Kongers who feel, or who told me that they feel represented by this film. And sadly, not enough people know about these realities. And that's, I think, a job that we as filmmakers have to face, have to change.
Yes, And both sides, for the activists and also the filmmakers, this is very a big job to do. That's something that we should also keep in mind. And I think this the person who actually gave that comment was also saying that I'm glad that you choose to include the Hong Kong protest in this movie, because outside of Hong Kong, we have been given mostly a one-sided story. But this is also, this is also something that probably most documentary filmmakers face, like whether, or maybe like sometimes in the face of a limbo, whether they provide a one-sided story or not. So have you ever also faced those kind of challenge?
Definitely. It is always a challenge, who are we going to portray? They will have their own individual opinions. And that's the reason why we did this extensive collaboration with activists and filmmakers on the ground, to ensure that we're at least covering all aspects, all prospects of young activism. And especially when it comes to explaining the protest, that we're really advised by everyone we can find, and to really triple check if we are including all important facts. But surely, as a documentary filmmaker, the moment you decide for a country, the moment you set up your camera, you have only a limited view. That's a reality nobody can escape from. But I think what we can do is to work really hard to make this as real as anyhow possible. And that's what the film was all about, to give a good representation of what young activism also on the ground looks like, what it feels like, what the main fears are, what the main concerns are.
And how did the film get the reaction when but the film has already been played in the cinema in Germany, or was it postponed due to the pandemic?
We played at various festivals, and we are now very much looking forward to the German theatrical release on October 14th, so in 3 weeks. But we already had quite a lot of preview screenings, open air screenings and all that. And the reactions have been really astonishing, really outstanding. We often had very, very long discussions about the individual activists, the individual countries. We spoke in detail also with German and UK politicians and decision makers, discussed what also the EU or what the individual countries could do in theory. Yes. Many young people joined these screenings and told us about their individual feelings about the film, and it's such a pleasure to speak with people about the film and to hear reactions. I think one of the first screenings that was particularly impressive for us was a very small screening we had right after finishing the film for a small group of Hong Kong exile members in the UK, in Birmingham. We're like 20 people in the room, and we showed the film, didn't really know what they were thinking and all that. Yes. And after the screening, a Hong Kong former activist just ran towards us and hugged us as a team really, really long, and cried and said that he didn't know that he actually had a voice in Europe that represents him so well. And I think that was the highest compliment for us to ever receive.
Yes, indeed, that's actually changed their life as well, being an exile. But probably they feel so lonely, but now they're not lonely anymore due to your film. That's that was a very nice gesture that given by them. Also, how did you manage to? I can understand that some of the filmmakers usually have this kind of attachment to the project, especially in documentary, because you've been living with this like years and years. And how did you manage to detach yourself before you make a new one, as you are now in the new project?
First of all, the next project, unfortunately I can't tell much about it, but it is somewhat connected to this project as well. And we are still in the midst of the distribution. So I think for us, we haven't detached from the project at all. We are still very much involved in, using every opportunity to show the film, to discuss the film, to speak with people about it. We are also in touch with quite a few documentary filmmakers who are doing somewhat similar projects. We are Sometimes we are advising people on, what it is, how it feels like to film on the front line. And we are proud that we can identify with the film and that the film is now getting such a large audience. We also have distributors in Canada, in the UK as well, something that we are really proud of. And we still obviously care very, very deeply about the project, and want to ensure that we create the best platform possible during the distribution.
And earlier you also saying that you're trying to raise the concern of the EU about this issue too. Has that been implemented, or are there any progress on that part?
We are in close correspondence with quite a few mid to high level decision makers, and we are in regular communication when it comes to adjusting German or EU foreign policy. However, as I'm sure you know, this is a very, very long process, and one film can inspire change, but cannot directly lead into change. We also need some willingness from the politicians themselves.
I couldn't agree with you more, yes. But you already created a ripple of water, probably waves around the globe, and hopefully to our audience here. So yes, before we ended this, there was like one last question that I would like to ask you. What is your tips or motivation for the young activists that we have here, also for the young filmmaker, documentary filmmaker that's following your path too?
I think the next 10 years will be decisive. The next 10 years will be defining and important for our future, for the future of our children, for the future of our grandchildren. So let's just use the next 10 years to make good films, to tell relevant stories, to have enough courage without compromises, to just be the best we can. Let's collaborate worldwide. Let's communicate with each other. Let's understand each other. Let's support each other just to make good films. Right now, we need these relevant stories. There are too many films that tell stories we don't need. We just don't care about. Let's change that. Let's change that trend. Let's show what we as a young generation, as young filmmakers can do. And while doing that, let's always also have some fun and let's support each other. I think that's the most important attitude, I would say, that I also represent.
Yes, that's a very good attitude, especially when you are under gas tear bomb or water cannon.
Yeah, let's have some fun here.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be so much fun to get splashed from the water cannon, but yes, I think the positive vibes and the positive attitude to know that what you do could create something, even like the smallest changes, and could at least the neighbor, your friends, and people who probably doesn't care at the beginning, but seeing you out there started to get worried and they started to get more involved. I think that's something that could create changes all around the world. And thank you for enabling that changes and for creating ripples of waves with your film. And we are looking forward to your next films. And but before that, the host was just like cueing me that we have to take a photo of.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, great. So yes, please, Fina, please lead us for the photo op.
All right.
Hello everyone, I am the host and we will do the photo session right now. Please look at the camera and I will count to 3. Show best pose and smile. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Once again. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Fina. Thank you, Fina, and thank you so much, Franz, for this chat. This has been such a fun chat to talk with you, and I hope that one day we could meet soon. I don't know where. Maybe after the pandemic is over with your new film. Looking forward for your new film.
Absolutely. It has been a real privilege and pleasure to speak with you. Also, thanks so much to the audience for these interesting questions. If you have any more, I'm also, reachable through Instagram or just by email. And yeah, I hope that the festival will go really well, and hopefully we'll see each other soon.
Great. Thank you so much, Franz, and have a nice weekend.
You too. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye, ciao. So yes, everyone, that was our session with the director of Dear Future Children, Franz Böhm, and I will also announce the winner of today. It will be the gift will go to Mr. Lukman Fahid Mukti Wibowo. Congratulations. You get the package from Film On Screen, and our team will be in contact with you. And yes, we still have a lot of film to watch. Please book the films directly before they run out, because I think like more than 10 film has already sold out. So book your film now, and don't forget, tomorrow we will have another session with my colleague Noval for the film talk. Register yourself, and hopefully you could also win such a nice package from our Festival Europe On Screen 2021. Me, Putri, signing off, and I'll see you guys again soon at the Film Talk and another festival updates in Europe On Screen 2021. Ciao!